ELI5 do we need for the world to function? If so, how many percent need to be broke, middle class or rich? Poverty and starvation is the natural state of humans. Some of us have benefited from a very slow, generations-long crawl up out of that. Unfortunately, we've left a lot of debris in our wake, making poverty in some places worse than it would have been in the past. No one has to be poor, but everyone who has not been pushed or pulled up out of it will continue to be so. Those of us pushed up by our ancestors probably have an obligation to pull up those less genetically fortunate. Though, I doubt we will ever be successful. We need about 4/7 to be unemployed. Under 3 or 2, and places like MCDS need to start offering so much pay to attract and retain workers, the price of their food rises above what the market will bear. This happened in North Alberta a few years ago. You could say, fine, raise the prices. Which then counteracts the effect of low unemployment driving up wages. We end up with systemic inflation and shrinking activity. Around 5 give or take creates ELI5-ready labor to smooth out bulbs from normal cycles and not bring inflation. No, we don't need poor people for the economy to run. But when there is poor people, there is a cheap supply of labor and will be utilized as such. What if we reach a point where nobody is poor, not rich, just not poor? There would be a lot of automation. To be clear, life would be more expensive in this scenario, but the economy would adapt. A lot of things are not automated simply because it is cheaper to use that labor. Once the cost of that labor reaches a point where the automation is cheaper, then it will be done. Only tyrants need broke people among the populace because they are a fine source of easily manipulated people. That is, people who can be coerced, brainwashed, inculcated or conditioned into adhering to the tyrant's desires. Let's call them the herd. The herd lead fearful, hateful lives and are willing to financially and emotionally back the tyrant with the little they have, and deep down it is out of fear. It is not a pretty existence. Holistic leaders lead for the people and not some other entity. ELI5. You have 10 friends for dinner, 9 of them give the other one all of their food except the one bean. The one with all the food says, sorry, we just need you to eat 1 bean so the world can sustain itself. The reality is the vast majority of the world lives in abject poverty while the very small minority has insane wealth comparatively. Often on the backs of the most poor. We don't need broke people for the world to function. We need broke people for the world to function with the indulgence we want. Absolutely not. That is a communist trope. We each contribute to society and then reap the rewards of our contribution. Over time every product's cost will reach its marginal value. What I'm trying to say is the most valuable things are always the newest ones. Working for a living was invented thousands of years ago. You can't expect to make a lot of money working for others. It's old hat. Find something you can do that no one has thought of before. Or something few know how to do. There's an exercise in building societies where you're asked, if you were going to be placed in a society at random, what would you like it to look like? The best answer is one with a large middle class and very small poor and rich demographic. That would give you the best chance for a happy life. I don't think this equates to communism, but strong social safety nets and large inheritance taxes can help create this. The theory is you can't pay people who do shit jobs because then nobody will be desperate enough to do them. Plumbers prove that this theory is horseshit. They work with sewer pipes and crawl spaces and really miserable stuff, yet they make good money and still show up for work. So no, nobody should need to be poor. Eliminating the poor people mainly just increases the cost of low-end labor. Looking back through history, there were brief periods in small areas where almost no one was broke and the economy functioned better. Sometimes, after a plague, wages go up, because there are fewer workers and there is plenty of food, because there are fewer mouths to feed. In the 1950s and 60s, in places in the US with auto companies, there were very few broke people. No, we don't need broke people. Jobs are created out of necessity, the amount people get paid is limited by those in power. Minimum wage could be $20, bringing massive amounts of people out of poverty, and the people at the top wouldn't experience much change at all. The world could function even better if the working poor weren't trapped in their underpaid jobs. It sounds great on paper, but think about it. Why should a doctor who spent years and years going to medical school and worked his butt off be paid the same as someone who picks up trash in the park? Why should the hard workers not be compensated for their hard work? If everyone had the same work ethic, then yeah, sure, but that's just not the case. By historical standards, almost everyone in Western countries are rich. Poor countries have lots of actually broke people and it doesn't do them any good. Society doesn't need broke people. If everyone got 10K a month in dollars, the only result would be inflation, but if 10K of actual wealth was being produced, then it would make everyone rich. I was just talking to someone who mentioned that when she checked her carbon footprint, it said that if everyone lived the way she did, we would need 12 Earths. She's just an average American. So if that's true, I would say that the only reason I can enjoy the luxuries I have is because most people around the world live in abject poverty. If you give poor people free money, they will buy iPhone and make Apple 2x bigger overnight. Consumer-based economy, belittle people who don't like the rat race. They got what they asked for. You always need reliable, high-quality leaders for whatever new economic theory you come up with. Communist is quite bad at that. We don't. A billionaire contributes nothing more to society than a multimillionaire. There's absolutely nothing useful someone can do with over $1 billion. And yet we have the highest number of billionaires we've ever had in modern history, and at the same time the highest level of poverty since over a century ago. Of course it's not necessary. But people like power, so we structure society in hierarchical orders and deem them meritocracy. There are quite a few board games that illustrate this, and Monopoly was literally designed to show that profiteering is unsustainable. There's a reason economies crash regularly. It's not a matter of need, just a matter of reality. The market value of some work is simply not as high as others. Artificially inflating this value or compensating through wealth redistribution has other consequences. There is no perfect way to organize something as complex as a modern, developed economy. Basically, there are a ton of low-skilled, shit jobs out there that nobody wants to do. So only the people who have no other options will do them. The more we advance our technology and automation, the more of those jobs need not be done by humans. AMD, the dynamics may keep changing. Hard to say. You have to describe what broke means in order to get a logical answer. I was rich with houses and cars, and now I just have a lofty bank account. Am I rich? Compared to whom? Is the guy fortunate enough to live in an area that has a food bank poor? Again, compared to whom? What is broke? The standards of living are super high compared to how people lived 100 years ago. Will there always be people with significantly less material wealth than the average? Will there always be some jobs less desirable than others? I think this question is conflating money with wealth, as most people do, so you will only end up with a ton of fallacies as answers to it. Money, at least modern money, owed to you by others. Wealth settled out in your favor. No, we don't. There will always be people who are better off, but the economy isn't a pie that has to be shared by everyone. Standard of living has increased tremendously through capitalism. Innovation and productivity grows the pie. If you want a proper explanation, you should probably get an economics degree, because that's what it would take to answer the question. Economics is a very complex maze and there aren't any simple answers. As sad as it is, you need desperate people to maintain your standard of living. Full automation could be the answer to it, but I don't think the elites would be okay losing their privileges. Ideally, everyone gets the food, shelter, medical care, access to education and training, transportation. We should strive for a baseline for all people. We don't need rich people. The majority of poverty is a political decision and a global competition. Society is a nice play we put on, but at the end of the day we're all competing to feed our families. I'd love to see a graph of homeless people that are sleeping in the bed they made over time. It's already lots of people that did the right things. Pitchforks soon. While it's not possible for everyone to be rich, it is possible for everyone to not be starving and being able to live on their wage despite their job or qualifications. If those people brought some value to the world, then yes. If not, then it would be just a waste of space really, and no one would do anything, meaning society would die. People who work at McDonald's live a better life than kings did 200 years ago. So, the answer is that everyone can get richer, but not everyone can be the richest. Great idea! Why should society be forced to accept the fact that some people are far more skilled than others? Who cares if your surgeon is inept? There's always a bigger fish. There is a great video I just watched that explained why this is a fallacy. The cynical answer is that poor people exist to show the middle class what happens to them if they don't play ball. Rich exist only because there is poor, like light cannot exist without darkness. That's the way of the road, son. Current capitalism requires broke people with no jobs and broke people with jobs that barely get them by.